Yes. Any name, any name.
Deathbed.
Deathbed. We just finished doing deathbed. Yes. So we have World War One in the background. Again, Ivor Gurney is going to be talking about this whole concept. So the soldiers were on the first march on the day they hadn't settled yet into thinking of England, that it's their homeland now. You know, they have been fighting over the borders. And the force behind the reason for being a World War One soldier was to save England, or thinking of anything other than their physical suffering. They were not thinking of their physical suffering as well. So, if you notice that there will be certain details given in the later part of this poem, which is going to talk about how they are progressing. There is movement in the poem. I haven't read the poem yet. I'm trying to tell you, please make bullet points about what is this poem about. There is a movement. So you will come across that how they are passing by certain landmarks, how they are going by. So the movement, the progression is definitely going to be noticed. Walking across a flat country only gives the mind a small chance or hope to escape its own dark thoughts. So they're walking, and the soldiers make a stop in one place, then another, and then they set off back to the open countryside. So the whole idea of this poem is the sense of relief after a long, tiresome war. So, what are going to be some of the themes we are going to look at? Let me show you how this is going to be constructed. As this was the very first slide that I showed, and this is an introduction. You are going to say the poet rather than the author. So the poet of First March is Ivor Gurney. He was born on August 28, 1890 in Gloucester. We don't say Gloucester, it's Gloucester, England, and created his legacy of writing poems, and definitely a composer. Elizaveta, I want you to read from here. Despite his mental problems,
Despite his mental problems of manic depression, he was still able to focus on the aspect on writing poetry. Also, he created many poems about his experience within war. The time that his poem was written was between the years 1920 and 1922. The
this was
poem
the this was actually the time frame in which World War One was about to be ending, and people had no clue that World War Two is going to hit really hard. So it's a moment, it's a temporary moment of their relief, basically. So you can actually see in the picture as well. Now, you thank you for reading, Aliza. I would give the chance to Mahnoor. Please read this third bullet point. This the poem
The poem,
primarily.
the poem primarily focuses on the exhaustiveness and hard work of marching that soldiers have to put up with during war. The international meaning of this poem is to be grateful to
Intentional.
the
Mhm.
intentional meaning of this poem is to be grateful to the commitment that the soldiers have done to serve our country. The
Mm.
poem supports this meaning by describing the harsh conditions they are forced to deal with and the internal pain that they have to fight through. Also, Ivor intentionally give his audience a more deeper background of what it is like to traveling places during war. He helps the audience to not only think of how the actual combat and warfare is the most extreme part of being in a war, but also to let them realize that traveling can be extreme too.
Traveling can be extreme too. I think the bottom line which has been communicated is in the third one. But this is also interesting to note what was the time frame in which this poem was written. Why people were so much obsessed writing about war. They were trying to deal with a bigger sense of an idea. Let's say they were dealing with some ethical questions, whether it is a solution to any problem or not. Is it justified to hold wars? Why do people need to die? So death, again, the monotony of life, because you don't have anything else to do. You're away from the family. You're prepared for death, and sacrificing your life in the name of country. So again, there are so much, like we did futility, we did deathbed, And now this is the third war poem that we are doing, and they have all of these recurring, themes when we are going to look at in great detail. It is important, before you read the poem, you need to know what exactly the elements of the first stanza or the second stanza, how they, make more sense. Who is the speaker? The speaker is a soldier. Please write it down. Make bullet points. The speaker is a soldier who talks about his personal experience and personal experience of being a soldier in Gloucestershire regiment. Regiment, because we are talking about the particular territory or area in which he was designated to perform his duty. Let's have a look at the next. So when you're annotating your poem, and that what we are going to do, so I will be paying attention to the rhyming scheme. Those who do not know anything about rhyming scheme, it is basically the last um, syllable, the last word, whether it matches with the second line or not. That's how we're going to create and label the rhyming meter. I'm going to show you just how. Okay, it is important because we are analyzing a text. And specifically when you have poetry. However, when it comes to Shakespeare or any other drama, they always incorporate some poetic element in the drama, but there we do not have as such too many rhyming, but in poem it's one of its highlighted feature. It says narrated in first person perspective, and we call it what? Do we call it omniscient narration or intrinsic narration? What do we call it when we have first person pronoun perspective? Is it intrinsic narration, first person, or is it omniscient narration? Can anyone tell me? Can we write in the chat box? Or can we just turn on the mic and tell us? I've got Aliza, I have Safat, Manur, Laiba. Laiba, Mahnur, Safat. Yeah, Aliza, I have one of the students is not here. Yeah, Asalan, I believe he's not here. So can anyone just let me know? What is it? It's going to be intrinsic narration. I really wish that we should be able to know better our annotations in this way. So I'm writing at the very top, it's intrinsic narration. I hope, no, I can't. On this, I can't. Can you please write it down? It's intrinsic narration. I'm gonna just resize the screen so that it's all visible to you. Good. Narrated in first person is always going to be intrinsic. The text of the poem denotes the literal meaning. Denotes means the literal meaning. The exhaustion of marching and traveling soldiers by emphasizing on the circumstances and struggling stages of war like winters, starvation and migration. Just imagine they have been hungry, they have been starving for emotional warmth as well as the food. So you tend to sympathize with them. You do realize that there are points in life that it takes more than what it seems to be being a soldier, like winters. March is, in the world of literature, is a symbol of rejuvenation, revival, rebirth. The spring is at its full bloom. So March is going to be marking the season of spring. Summer is June, July, May, June, July. That is summer. Then you have the sequence. I think let us just draw this before I talk about the tones, before I talk about anything else. It is important for us to, I'm sharing a blank screen so that you can be able to make up this diagram. Intrinsic, yes, Manu, sorry, I just saw your message right now. All right, so what are we going to do? We are looking at the symbolic representation. Okay, symbolic representation of the seasons, symbolic representation of the seasons. No matter you have poem, you have a drama, you have prose, but in general, in general, they're basically focusing upon the sequence. So we are looking at spring, and then we have summer, then we have autumn. I'm not teaching you the sequence of every this part, but I'm trying to tell you what do they connote as. And then again, it goes in cyclic, way. It goes and goes and goes. It keeps on going on. So what are we looking at? Spring. Whenever you are going to come across a spring, you will mark it as like in terms of like by the end of the Feb and then March, because we have done by Thomas Hardy a novel last year. And now it is no more in the syllabus, but I wanted to just tell you the seasonal imagery. You will get to analyze seasonal imagery that is symbolic of, you see, the external circumstances always in one or the other way resonate with the person's feelings. So that is how we're going to look at. So we have spring, that is the season of March, and we are looking at rejuvenation. Okay, rejuvenation, rebirth. You can also use revival. In this case, they are returning home, so they have a lot of ideas related to, obviously, this there is an element of hope, you know. Then you have summer. Summer is the symbol of youth. Specifically, you will be doing Sonnet 19. You will be doing Sonnet 19 with me. And there are other, poems as well in which summer has always been indicated as joy, and it's full of colors. Again, there are similarities, but we are talking about summer as youth, symbol of someone's beauty and charm and freshness and energy. Then you have autumn. Autumn. Any clue? Any idea? What do you think autumn stands for? Any idea? Hmm. We're thinking autumn will be a symbol of what? You must have seen in some of the dramas and movies, like there's a character on his own, wrapped up in a shawl and walking and on the rustling leaves, and everything is pale or like brown and yellow around you, orange around you. And it's the approaching of the winter as well. It sounds melodramatic, isn't it? But we actually mean by autumn as nostalgia, as sadness, nostalgia, someone who reminiscence. You can also say sadness. You can also say melancholy. It's melancholic. So when these concepts are clear and you're trying to make your interpretations, they're going to be more fruitful in the long run, because you know the seasonal imagery playing an essential role. Why? Because like a soldier being himself, like Ivor Gurney, he was inspired by the nature, something where you find your solace into. The writers look up for inspiration in nature as the powerful symbol for healing, but also destruction as a natural disaster. Then you have winter. Any idea?
Death.
Winter is going death. Winter. We just did deathbed, and so it's always cold. When the person dies, the body becomes cold. And so as the season of winter, so there will be death, there will be separation, there will be breakup, there will be anything which has to do with cold heartedness. So you're looking at all of these ideas together. So I hope it makes sense to you now when I'm going to say, all right, March and spring, how they're interlinked with each other. So you're going to make a sense about it. Is there any question over here? Please quickly tell me. By the way, I wanted
No,
to just, okay, I just want to emphasize over here one more thing, which is to do with the poem Futility, um, Futility of War, right? So we have the running themes, and it was written by Wilfred Owen. That was also indicating winter season, and that was death. Again, It's not like physical death. We're talking about humans conscience death, the inner self death, right? When we don't understand the idea that how people don't find anything as an erroneous or error or flaw within war. Why are we not fixing it? So that is how we're going to look at. So it's futility. So you do make sure that you remember it. Now we are getting back to now let us just read the poem so that it becomes clearer. I think I've given you a lot of ideas now. So I'm going to zoom in more. Okay. So Aliza Beta, I would ask you to read from here and let's say escape, till escaped, still escape. Okay.
It was first marching. Hardly we had settled yet to think of England or scared body pain. Sorry, my voice is like
No, no problem.
flat
If you're
country
fine,
going
you
leaves.
can read. Otherwise, I can ask anyone. It's fine, absolutely fine.
Okay. If you can understand, that's fine.
We can all understand, and your voice texture matches the mood of the poem as well. It's a bit softer, and it's exactly the dullness, the exhausting voice. So yes, you can read. Definitely, you should read.
Flat country going leaves, but a small chance, a small hope for the mind to escape to any resort but its vain own circling greyness and its name. First hold, second hold, and then to spoiled country again. There were no unknown kilometers to march. One must settle to play chess, or talk home talk, or think as might happen after 3 weeks of February frost. Few were in fettle, barely frostbite the most of us Gloucesters had escaped.
Had escaped. So I told you every time when we're reading a poem, we need to go through it once more. So thank you, Eliza, for reading. And now I'm reading along with the explanation. So please pay attention. It was first marching. It starts on as if the poet is narrating a story. It was first marching. You have opened up a book and it's almost like entailing you a story. This is a comment on the structure. Please write it down. We are looking at as if it entails a story, a war story, a success story. Hardly we had settled yet to think of England or escaped body pain because it hurts. Therefore, there is a caesura. There's a caesura. I hope you have the booklets with you and you're writing, you're annotating on it. And those who do not have, please, I will be definitely providing you in the next class. But make sure your annotation is really strong. Let me remove this part so that we can have more space to comment on. It was first marching, hardly we had settled yet. So the idea runs from here till here. So there is no pause in between unless we are given over here. But we're looking at the major pause, that is a strong caesura. And because of the body, aching, it's agonizing, you know. You don't the numbness was there when they were fighting. I mean, in a way that they were so much indulged into fighting, but after the whole period of battlefield has been over, so now they feel flat country going leaves, flat country going leaves, but small chance, small hope for the mind to escape to any resort, but it's vain. So the idea runs from this line till this line, then you have again this line. So what do we call this? We call this enjambment. What does this emphasize? It emphasizes on the idea that there is repetition. Number one, first of all, we're going to look at the repetition, but small chance, small hope for the mind to escape. They did not have any time to think about themselves or to think about their families back at home. They did not have any time mentally, physically, so they are trapped, they are fixed, designated on certain spots to fight and rival around whatever. But then they cannot escape to any resort, but it's vain, it's useless. own circling grayness and stain, the stain of the blood, the stain of the people. Grayness is the, again, we are talking about grayness, we're talking about the dull, the monotonous of their life, the dullness in their life. They did not have anything to do. They could look gray wherever it comes, gray color. That shows lifelessness. It's lifeless. So while marching, they're circling, circling. They're all constantly on guard. They're rounding. And then they say, okay, first halt, second halt. So finally, these commas are indicating the pauses, the minor pauses, in order to show that they were taking few spots to rest and then to spoiled country again. Spoiled country, why? Because the war has just been over and the country needs a lot of ways to develop itself. So they're calling this is what we call this is as an adjective that has been used and showing what kind of a country. There were unknown kilometers to march, anonymous. There was like uncountable. How long do we need to march? How far do we need to go? Country again. Okay, one must settle to play chess. Must is a condition. So this is known as an auxiliary verb. This is an auxiliary verb which shows the firmness or determination of an action. In this case, rest is emphasized. The monotonous of walking and marching has taken their energy, the mental, they're not at peace in within themselves. So one must settle to play chess or talk home talk. The repetition of this emphasizes or talk home talk. That means it was about the families, it was about their loved ones whom they feel that they have left behind. Or, see, these options have been given. Or the topics for their discussion to pass their time. Think as might happen after 3 weeks of February frost. F- f- February 1st, and then few, and then fatal. So let me finish till here, then I'm going to tell you and I'm going to ask you which figurative language is this? Which figurative device is this when few words are used from the same sound? From the same sound. What do we call it? Which figurative language, beta? Which?
Alliteration.
Very good. This is an alliteration, and you get to see this figurative device is known as an alliteration. The consistent repetition of F sound. Okay, what comment are we going to make? We'll just talk about it. Let me finish with this sentence. Barely, hardly. All right. Frost, again, frost bite. The most of us Gloucesters had escaped. What is he talking about? He's talking about his own idea, why he has been able to, escape. So, figurative device, we have alliteration. F sound is known as fricative sound. What do we call it, beta? Fricative sound. And what does it do? It underscores the hardship and difficulty of February marching. I repeat, it's cold. It's still cold. It's not March. It's not going to. Please forget about your country because for a time period, because we have like in the mid of Feb, spring is blossoming, blooming, and but we are talking about this another setting. Um, so we are talking about fricative. It shows again the sinisterness of the tone, the harshness, f sound. It's not the soothing or the calming one, but it talks about the hardship and the difficulty of February marching. Emphasizing the abstract noun. I'm using abstract noun. Abstract noun is frost over here. Abstract noun. Frost to show the conditions that soldiers were required to endure. They were supposed to be bearing, enduring the frostbite, but they were only able to survive it because they belonged to Gloucester and they were known as Gloucesters, and it was already very cold. So they were trained in the hard conditions and they were able to, survive in that way. February frost, you can also say over here, this is February frost. Again, abstract noun because it cannot be proper. Frost is like cold weather, winter. This is an alliteration. With F sound, we are creating fricative sound that talks about the harshness. All right. So please make sure that you're able to understand this important part of, the poem. Now, I want to raise this. We talked about enjambment. We talk about the dullness of the atmosphere, the ambience. The Caesura is definitely there because they're tired, they're exhausted. It's tedious, it's monotonous, constantly walking and marching. So we are done with the first section of the poem, and then we are looking at the second section. Now this is even more interesting. How? Let me reshare. Okay. So yeah, I will go back to the poem. But first of all, I want you to look at the tones, the voice of the poet. And we have over here the tones are solemn tone, mournful tone, painful and grieving and lamenting. The the beauty of analyzing any poem is that you need to have synonyms. You need to have some sort of like vocabulary bank. And for this, I have already provided a chart in my second booklet, which you will be receiving very soon. The first booklet is a combination of drama and poem. So you need to be very careful. It has all the positive tone words, negative tone words. It has neutral tone words. You can easily use it while creating effects. Impact on the reader. How does it make me feel? So my question to you is, how this first section makes you feel like? Is it like you're looking through the lens of a warrior, a soldier? What a waste of time war is, and how devastating it can be just to walk in the cold weather outside. Do you have any points, any comment? Please share. I would be more than happy to take your comments. The first part. Let me show you the poem so that you can look at it and you'd be able to understand in a better way. Yes, so we were here. I am going to repeat if someone has joined a bit late. We are looking at the very first section. It doesn't have any proper stanza. We're not dividing into, but we are looking at, because its consistency of walking has not been hindered or obstructed by anything. The movement progresses and it keeps going on, and therefore the lines indicate the same thing. It goes on and on and on. However, as we are doing this explication, apart from analysis, you can also say explication of the poem. You can also use this word. So according to this entire first section, we have the surroundings, the setting, we have a caesura, we have the repetition of a small chance, a small hope that yes, we are going to make it to the flat country. I mean, there are no hurdles anymore. We're going to be back at home. So there were two spots where they rest. Now they have reached to a second part of the poem. That's it. The poem finishes right over here. I want one of my students to please read from here. To move, then to go onward. To move, then to go onward. So can I take, do we have Arsalan in the class? Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, Mahnur has posted a comment in the chat box. She says, it makes us feel pity for the soldiers. It compels us to view the hardships of a warrior. Yes, indeed, it does. So, Arslan, beta, over to you. Please read from here to move.
To move, then to go onward. At least to be moved. Myself had revived and then dulled down. It was I who stayed for body ease on the grey sky, and watched in grind of pain the monotone of grit road metal slid underneath by dulled down by to get there being the one way not to die. Suddenly a road stunt brought the sweet, unexpected pleasure. Snowdrops bloomed in a ruined garden neglected. Roamed the road as of birdlip we were on the verge, and this West Country thing so from chaos to emerge. One gracious touch touched the whole wilderness, corrected.
I like the way you emphasize on certain, words, and you
Yeah, because
created.
I think it changed from like a mournful tone to like,
Yeah.
yeah, a relief tone. He's like sweet, and then from chaos to emerge. Like I think he
Hmm.
reached his destination.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. They have finally reached to their destination, the very spot where they were supposed to be. Okay, now there are a few things that you need to write down the meanings of. For example, the first one that I'm looking at is bird lip, and you must be wondering, all right, what is this? And I think you can be talking about neglected. Neglected is very simple. It means being abandoned, and someone who has not been able to, ignorance or left to cope by itself. Bird lip is over here. You have to write it down. A small village in Gloucestershire. It's a small village. We're looking at small village in Gloucestershire. All right. So they have reached to a certain spot. Then you have morning falter. Where is morning falter written? Can anyone recognize where is morning falter? Where is it? Who's going to understand? Who is going to identify? Where is morning? Morning, not morning. Hmm. Do we have? No, we do not. We don't have it over here. Okay, so the monotony again is the mundane, dull, routine like task. Routine like task. I mean, ordinary, nothing specific about it. Monotony. And watch and grind of pain, the monotony of grit, road metal, slide underneath by dull down, by to get there, being the one way not to die. So if you notice, please notice over here, there is only one pause here. This entire part is this entire part till here. This is what we call enjambment, and there's a reason behind it. What do we mean by enjambment? We call them run on lines. The idea runs from one to the other. What do we mean by this? Why are we writing about this? What do we mean by this? Why are we writing? Why enjambment? Because there is an urgency. Now they have seen that particular spot from where their own town or the village begins. So there is more urgency to reach and to rest. So their pace has picked up and they're fast. The progress of their movement is really fast now. Bloomed for morning? Yes, Aliza, thank you. Yes, bloomed for morning. So now they caught up with the pace because they had to be, as compared to the first section of the poem, Vita, we need to understand that it was a steady, dull, and really slow. Every now, here and then, we had caesuras and commas and punctuation. And even then, it begins with transitive verbs. We have verbs over here. And what are these verbs like? Can we just look at the idea? So, which says to move, then to go onward. So move, verb, all right, transitive verb to go, and leads to be moved. Again, there is repetition. Myself had revived. Again, just like Arsalan said, they have now been at a relief that they have finally reached to a certain, and then dull down. So the path is a bit steepy and they're going a bit down. It was I who stared for body ease on the gray sky. So their only little escape was to look at the sky and just to take a deep breath and watch in grind of pain. Again, the bodies were sore. The monotony of grit again because the road itself was a challenge to them. Dull down alliteration. Is there any other alliteration over here? Hmm. Find out. We have one more alliteration. It starts with the same
Whole
sound.
wilderness.
Sorry, come again?
Whole wilderness. In the
No,
last line.
nahi, dekho, you're saying whole, and then wilderness. So they are not the same sound. No, not the same sound. They're the same letters, but not the same sound. Not the same sound. So this is not an alliteration. No. So where is it? Where is it?
Roman the
Find out,
road.
hun. Mhm.
Roman the road.
Roman the road. Yes, it can be accepted because it doesn't matter where you have off the any other article in the middle, but Roman the road. So as if r, it creates an echoing effect, echoing the name of the same, let's say acquainted place, acquainted with the same place as of bird lip. We were on the verge. And this west country thing, this over here is called Dexes. Now I need to write it a bit more clearly so that you can see. I'm giving you some new words now. Dexes are those expressions which are used as this, that, those, these. Only the reader who has converged into the poem, who has been accommodated, who has completely participated in understanding the poem, he or she, the reader, will be able to understand this. This is particularly pointing towards the direction in which they were going, and he points out to the recognized place, and then he says, this West Country thing. So, from chaos to emerge. One of the comments in the chat box, let's have a quick look. It says, one way. Yes, it's one way. Roman the road as of Birdlip, we were on the verge. And this west, again, west country thing. So from chaos to emerge, one gracious touch, the whole wilderness corrected. Whole wilderness corrected? Can you comment on this? Come on, you can do this now. I want everyone to tell me, yes, someone in from the class said it's a relief, but what else? How does he close? Um, he ends his entire poem. Hmm. How does he end the poem? How does he end the poem? On what note? Maybe it's a reference to his state of mind. A state of mind, yes, it is definitely a reference to his state of mind, but you have to be more specific that he's being optimistic, that never to quit in life, no matter what hard, as in like a challenge will be given, but you will always rise above your fears. You will rise above your hardships. Now, one more comment in the chat. I never forget to read the chat box. Hopeful, yes, he's very hopeful. It's he there's a contrast. Please write it down. Thank you. With Manur's response, we're generating the idea. There's a stark contrast between the opening and the ending. That is hopelessness versus being hopeful. So we have this contrast. It begins on a very dull tone, and then it it sounds that no, finally they're back in their home. Um, so this was again, but I did not talk about anything to do with assonance. If you have forgotten about assonance, you can see this monotony. Oh, anything that has to do with A, E, I, O, U vowel sounds, which are prominently being heard. And then you can say monotony, down, die, right? And then you have sweet, and then you have ruined. So we have
Doomed, chaos,
loom. Where is chaos?
second last line.
Chaos, yes, chaos, chaos. Excellent, beta. And then you have gracious, us, and then so you have o sound, a lot of assonance. So you can say that assonance as one of the figurative devices is dominant towards the end, because obviously they're walking with pain and agony and misery. So therefore the elongating vowel sounds resonate, compare, or it fortifies the idea of their elaborate marching, the long distant path towards their home. All right. This is a crisp turn, suddenly a road turn. So that means at this point, see, there's a full stop. And this is a new turning. Perhaps they have come to a point where they have to take up a turn. A road's turn brought the sweet, unexpected pleasure. With this, it's not the only turn that they're taking physically. This is the turning point in their life when they're about to reach home, and they see the visible sign of Birdlip, their village. We were. So he starts, he does maintain that it's intrinsic narration, it's I, but never to forget that he also uses we, that is inclusive inclusive pronoun we. That means he was not alone. He was marching with other his companions, other soldier mates. There were so many other people around him. And on this note, we come to the end of the explication of a poem. We have an analysis. I'll just show you the whole written analysis. It depends whether you write it down or you type it down. It depends. But let me just share the screen so that you should know. I'm not yet done with the presentation as well. There are 3 more slides to go that can be read as your personal reading at home. With literature, you have to read. And just not read, active reading, proactively reading. See, this is the analysis of the poem for 25 mark. See, one of my very good student, now she's in A2, her name is Imama Amir. So she had very closely worked on, how the style, the language, the opening, and it's a very good, a strong written response. So it has been approved and checked. So I'm going to be sending you on WhatsApp group this particular, analysis along with the slide. And obviously, there are 2 students who do not have the poem, so I will be sending the poem as well. This is your at home weekend task, and please don't forget to study and prepare about the quiz. The quiz is going to be held very soon. You have any questions, please ask me, because I'm done with the lesson for today. All right, so I hope there are no questions. If there are any, please do contact on WhatsApp group or college group. That's it. Thank you very much. The class is over. Take care.
Office mess.
Allah Hafiz.